So yeah, man, we've not actually spoken, but we've kind of, I feel like our sort of worlds slightly orbit. I don't know if you know what I mean, but like our sort of areas on the internet kind of cross over a little bit.
I've been a big fan of your videos for a while, maybe like 2 years or something like that. You made me care about parkour,
That's what I do. I
which
do.
I,
That's
I
what I do,
never.
and then I stop doing it, and then everyone hates me for that.
Well, I'm impressed that you were able to make that kind of a pivot because it's so hard to do that. So many people try to pivot and it almost never works, but you did it. So that's very impressive.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, you know what it is. I was so aware that that was the case because I kind of got big in the parkour sphere probably 3 years after there were skater YouTubes doing the same sort of thing, and I was very aware of some of the skater YouTubers how they got stuck in like doing the same content constantly, and I was really
Right.
aware of it. So I wanted to kind of move out of it. It was sort of looking at when I was going through your channel. I was kind of like looking at all the old stuff, and I see that you've evolved, but I feel like you've stayed in the niche, but you've expanded it, and I'm kind of curious how you've done that, how you've managed that.
Well, I don't actually think I have evolved very much, to be honest with you. I've tried a lot, but I don't think I've really successfully done it. I think what I realized is that my audience kind of wants one thing, which is like, nostalgia about, rock bands from the 2000s.
Mm.
And so I give it to them. Yeah, I tried, but anytime I step outside of that, people don't really care for it. And that's okay. As long as if people like the content that I'm making, then, I'm happy.
Do you ever feel like, because I mean, I don't want to start on a fucking negative, but I felt when I was doing, I've just realised I've titled this wrong, so let me just update that. When I was doing like parkour stuff, I got to a point where I effectively ran out of ideas. It was sort of
Hmm.
two things. It was like I'd ran out of ideas, and I'd also just noticed the interest in it dropped at a point, and I think those two things made me decide, okay, now's the time to pivot. But do you ever get that sort of feeling of like feeling a bit boxed in with what you're doing, or how does it feel?
Yeah, but I mean, I think every creator feels that way. And so you just kind of have to accept that, that's just how it is. And so that's the challenge is like, how do you give the people what they want, but also kind of keep it evolving in some way or another? Um, I mean, I feel like I'm going to run out of ideas. Like, I'm going to run out of content at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Um, but it is what it is.
You know, it's so funny. When I first started YouTube, I really, really wanted to be able. I literally had it in my head. I want to make a video on Tyler Creator, which I just did the other week, and that was one of the first things I wanted to do at the very beginning. But I knew my channel wasn't there; it wasn't in the place. And now I've got to
Right.
the point where I could make that, and it done like decently. I've sort of also felt this weird feeling of now that I have no niche, it's almost too broad, to the point where I'm like, I don't know what to make videos on because like for me it's like a video will do really well, and I'll try do that, and I think okay maybe my niche is this or like something like that. But then sometimes when you're so broad, you could do a video. I did one recently about paparazzi, and it just fucking bombed. And
Right.
you kind of at
So
this
it's
point,
it's kind of hard to know like what you're even supposed to make.
and it makes you kind of, and this is something I think I've witnessed in you is that um, you balance on your second channel, you balance yourself as like a personality creator there, and on your main
Yeah.
channel, you balance yourself as a concept content creator.
Wikipedia reciter.
We're glorified Wikipedia research. Yeah.
Barely even glorified,
No, yeah, truly depressing.
at
But
least in my case.
how? Yeah, so that's interesting though, because that's a thing that a lot of YouTubers want. They want to be the personality creator, and that's where I'm at the moment, where I'm trying to get more personality into things. Did you make that decision at a point to go to Twitch and try and push that side, or how did it work?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. So I'd considered doing Twitch for a long time, and I just always sort of said that I didn't have time and blah, blah, blah. And then there was someone over at Twitch. He's not there anymore, Fred Rubenstein, who used to work at Roadrunner Records and cool guy. And I got in touch with him, and he basically was like, yeah, you should do this, and, we can help you out. And I was like, well, all right, fine, I'll give it a shot. And it ended up being a lot more fun and successful than I thought. And then I thought, well, I might as well put the clips up on YouTube while I'm at it.
Mm.
And someone, a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, I'll edit it for you. If, you give me this much of the revenue, then I'll edit everything. And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? And I really didn't expect anything at all to come out of it, and ended up being like it's almost as big as my main channel in terms of monthly views. Now I I post a lot more videos on the second channel, like 3 a week instead of 1 a week. So on a per video basis, it's less views. But I mean, I get 1 million views a month on it, which I feel
That's sick.
pretty good about for like a, a Twitch clips channel.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a lot more fun to make that content. And so, yeah, that was like a deliberate decision because you got to think like, how is it going to be different from the main channel? Or else it's just, some people when they have a second channel, it's just the same thing as their main channel, but with shittier production. And
Yeah, that's
I don't
literally
really
what
think
mine
that's,
is.
well, I don't think that's true. I think, well, I haven't watched all of them, but I've watched like a few chunks of those, which the ones that I've seen were more about like your personal story, like the one about the roadmen or whatever. So I don't think that's exactly true. Especially, but and especially now that your main channel videos are a little bit more polished.
Yeah.
I think there's even more of a difference. But yeah, I think you could just like go harder on the personality, and
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, man. It's definitely where I'm at. So how big of a YouTube head are you like now, right now?
I mean, I watch like it's pretty much the only thing I watch is YouTube and reality TV shows with my wife. So I mean, I would say I watch a pretty good amount of YouTube.
Oh hell yeah. So do you watch like Nakey Jakey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, not often, but yes, I'm familiar. He does great work.
I mean, he doesn't give you the opportunity to watch him often. He uploads like twice a
Right.
year. He's like,
Right.
But he's like exactly where I think I want to be. Where it's like you can kind of it's just so funny. Watching his videos are so funny, and I always find, and I'm curious what you think about this, when you're doing a video that's a video essay video, and it's got a point, a narrative, and I don't know how you record. Do you read a script? Are you like writing?
Yeah.
A script? Okay. So do you write in like humorous bits, like if you have like little? Because sometimes you don't seem like you're completely reading the script. You feel like it's a little lighter.
No, I stopped putting in humor and opinions about 2 years ago because anytime I put my personality into videos, it made people angry. So I stopped any kind of humor or, opinions or anything like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I put 2 jokes about Tizo Touchdown. I don't know if you know about him. He's this kind of rapper guy who puts nails in his hair. He makes good music. He's not really a rapper. He's kind of, I don't know. But he puts nails in his hair. It's very gimmicky, and I was just making a joke on that. And then must be 50% of the comments are like, "Dude, Tizo's sick. What the fuck are you on about? Why are you bitching?" Yeah.
Because like I made one joke for 3 seconds, and this is what the thing you fixate on out of a 16-minute video.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, fine. You guys just want me to read Wikipedia? That's okay. I mean, that just makes it easier for me.
And I suppose because you've got your second channel, you don't feel that hard. Like for me, it feels limiting on my main channel to not have any personality. So I've started to put jokes and trying to find a balance now. But I suppose with you, you've got the second channel, so you feel like you've got that creative outlet in that side,
Yeah, I also, I've just sort of come to terms with this, because I've been doing YouTube for 7 years now, I guess. And there was a time where I was more frustrated by this, and now I'm just like, it's cool. Like, my job is to make content. Actually, Adam22 in some interview he did was like, someone asked him, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And he was like, my job is to make content that people want to watch. So that's why I do this or that, whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, it's really that simple, isn't it? And so I think a lot of people get frustrated by kind of trying to force what they want to do onto the audience, right? And it's not about you or me. If that's sort of a selfish point of view. That's our ego talking, right? It's not about you or me or what we want. It's about what the audience wants. And, hopefully that can be something that, is like, I think there's some people who can just be their authentic self, and the audience loves it.
Yeah.
Like when it sort of overlaps perfectly. Like I don't know, but Nakey Jakey to me seems like that's his authentic personality. Like that seems to be who he is. Or in the metal world, Nick Nocturnal. Like I don't know Nick especially well, but I mean he seems like that's who he really is. Not everyone, that doesn't work for everyone. Other people sort of have to maybe, I don't want to say make compromises. I don't know what the right word is, but some people don't get to just be their authentic self all the time and have people love it. And that's just the way it is,
Yeah. I think I'm still trying to find that like balance for me, because it's one of them ones. I think maybe, how old are you, Finn, if you don't mind me asking? What I'm trying to say is I wonder if I've still got a young man's optimism,
Well, yeah. The other thing is, my career has been in like design and marketing, and
Yeah.
I did that for, I was a graphic designer for like 10 years, and the entire, like, your existence as a graphic designer, any kind of designer, is putting a lot of like yourself into a thing, and then you put it up on the wall, and there's a room of people who will go around the room and tell you everything that's wrong about it and what they don't
Yeah.
like about it.
Make it pop more, please.
Yeah, that's just how it
Yeah.
is. And it sucks at first, especially, because you do put a lot of yourself into the work,
Yeah.
but it's just the nature. That's the job, is it's not art. You're here to
Yeah,
make
man.
a thing that's going to drive business.
Damn,
And
you say it so coldly. I know what you're saying is 100% true, but I know that feeling of like, I feel in to some extent what we do on YouTube has elements of artistry to it.
yeah, yeah,
So that's great, but I know exactly what you mean. I have a friend who is, to be honest, an incredible artist, like in making music, graphic design, but he hates the fact that he's designing for all his clients. And what you're saying is exactly that story of he hasn't accepted what he is meant to do.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's, you just got, and there's no world in which anybody, I think, just gets to do whatever the fuck they want and get, showered with money and praise and attention, and they can just go around and do whatever they want. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
that exists for anyone. Think of whatever creator or artist or filmmaker or whatever you want. Like, if Quentin Tarantino made a rom-com that was like, not cynical at all, if he just made like a Kate Hudson movie from 2008, a wedding comedy movie, people would fucking hate it.
Yeah.
You know, like Quentin Tarantino has a very narrow lane that he needs to be in. I think that's just the nature of the beast. And of course, it's natural to sort of want to push the boundaries, and it's a good thing and all that. But I think a lot of people would maybe be happier if they would just sort of like take a deep breath and sort of be grateful. I just remind myself, I'm grateful that anyone gives a shit what I have to say about anything at all, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Any, like, the fact that I can publish any video or you can publish any video and there's going to be tens or hundreds of thousands of people that watch that is fucking crazy.
Yeah. True.
Think about, imagine when you were just starting, if you knew that this is the way things were going to go, and you'd be like, in the future, you could be like, well, young Jimmy, yeah, it's great that you're getting millions of views, but remember, you're not going to be able to, just make whatever content you want. And you'd be like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah, man.
like, who gives a shit? I'm getting 2 million views a month. Like, I don't give a shit.
It's such a weirdly like entitled. Like when you say it, I totally understand what you're saying. Like it's a kind of weird entitlement. I think a lot of people have, and I've noticed it a lot with trying to hire editors. Right. This was something that just come to mind when I was trying to. I'm always trying to hire editors. I find it's the hardest thing to find a good editor. And when I hire an editor now, right, so I'm paying like decent money for a kid, probably like 18, 20 years old, whatever. Good money. He doesn't need to go and work a shitty job to edit like 2 videos a month. And it's like probably a week's worth of work, really. And I cannot find one. And I'm thinking like back when I was...
Well, I've got someone I'll introduce you to. He's awesome.
Oh, please do. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Back in my day, as they say, when I was like 16 or something, I would have literally killed someone to be able to do that, to edit for a YouTuber. But now what it seems to me, and I get it because sometimes when they quit they always say, I just want to be doing my own thing or something like this. It always seems that people are so ambitious, and it's ironic coming from myself where I feel I am very ambitious, but it's like I almost see some people, especially very young people, they're so ambitious they don't want to take the job that will get them there, or they don't want to take the job that isn't the end point. So they're like, they're almost turning their nose up at what would be an insanely cool job to do as a 20-year-old, as an editor on a YouTuber.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I support anybody if you want to go out on your own and do your own thing. I think that's awesome. But you might find that you were better off, the grass is not always greener. There's lots of times in my career where, I thought I wanted this thing. I'll give you an example of this. A time where I thought I wanted this thing, and when I got close to it, I realized that maybe I didn't. So this is back in like the 2000s. I was doing a lot of like motion graphics and sort of video editing stuff. And I was kind of slowly, this is like when MTV, was at its peak. You remember like Viva La Bam and all those kind of shows, right?
Yeah.
And they had all those cool like intros and all that kind of stuff. Like motion graphics was like getting a lot of love at the time, and I was like, I want to do that stuff. And so I did a lot of freelance stuff, and I was posting my, work on all these forums, and I sort of started to get the attention. It's not like they were necessarily offering me a job, but I could tell that I was starting to get the attention of some of those people, and maybe like that was attainable. And then I went to go stay with my cousin who lived in LA at the time. And, he was asking me about this. And he's a little bit older than me. He's an investment banker. He doesn't know anything about like, art or anything like that. And he was like, oh, that's really cool. I was telling him all this. He was like, oh, that's really cool. Well, let me ask you, where are these places? And I go, oh, most of them are in Santa Monica, which for anybody who doesn't know is one of the more expensive parts of LA. And he was like, okay. Um, and he was like, well, how much do these jobs pay? And I was like, oh, probably at the time, this is 2000. So I was like, I don't know, maybe like 60 grand a year or something. He's like, okay. And what kind of hours are they? I'm like, well, they're long hours, but it's okay because this is, I really like this stuff. And he wasn't even trying to like burst my bubble, but like,
it was bursted just naturally. Yeah. You kind of
yes,
hear it,
in
yeah.
90 seconds of me just, and I was just answering his questions, and I had been spending years kind of grinding on this. And in 90 seconds, I was like, oh, fuck,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is not
Fuck.
a good, I was like, this is a bad idea. And so I ended up switching my major. I was in college at the time, and I
Mm.
switched my major to marketing, and, ended up just totally pivoting out of design and into business because I was like, well, if I'm going to be working hard, I would prefer to be working hard at something that's going to, make more money. And I'm glad I did. But point being is that like, especially when you're young, I think young men especially, are so fucking stubborn, and we won't listen to anyone about anything. It's
Yeah.
like maybe the thing you want, maybe you should want something else.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's yeah, man, you got me thinking about a lot of things. Like when I was doing parkour, like I did that for probably yeah, not to say I've quit. I'd love to get back into it. I always preface that because there's probably one person in the audience who knows me in the parkour world.
Uh-huh.
And the judgment of the parkour community is just, I could never accept that. So, but yeah, I just remember there was like these kids who would be so good at parkour, like just world class athletes, age 18,
Yep.
19, and they think they want to become professional freerunners. And so they just do parkour all day. They don't go to university. They do nothing but it. And then as soon as it comes to any form of way or potential way of monetizing parkour, so obviously your ways are now like YouTube or doing commercial shoots or doing stunt work.
Right.
I've seen people that went to go into it and then they just hated it. They hated the monetized version of the thing they love. And
Yep.
the thing you love versus the monetized version of it are two different things.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Like doing something as a hobby, like I play badminton a lot. I love badminton, but I'm sure if someone paid me to play it, I'd fucking hate it because the rigorous amount of exercise, etc.
Yep.
And it
I mean,
can,
if you
yeah,
do anything, 40 to 80 hours a week, it's going to turn into a grind because
yeah,
that's a lot of fucking time to do anything. Here's a good example. I talked to a guy years ago who I just ended up sitting next to him at a bar or something like that. And I remember what it was. I was at a restaurant, and there was a strip club next door. And I randomly ended up talking to the guy. He was like the manager, and I said something about like, "Oh, I wish I had the job of like auditioning the girls at a strip club." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I did that for years. I fucking hated it." And I was like,
yeah.
"What? What?" And he was like, "Oh my God, they're so annoying. They come in and they, are this and that and blah blah blah." And it's like, man, even the guy who auditions girls for a strip club
Hates
got
his
sick of
job.
him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. And the same thing of like, as soon as, it's a bit trite to say, but as soon as you get to the top of the mountain, you realize
Yep.
it's not quite. And it's like, there's more. And it's like, as I say, that was that kind of epiphany I had with the place I'm at now, able to make the video I wanted to make at the beginning, where I'm still feeling a little bit like not exactly certain. And it's like the place that you envisioned being the place of, I guess, calm, everything's good.
Doesn't
Never,
exist.
yeah, it doesn't exist, and it's good it doesn't
Yep.
exist. Else,
Yeah.
once you've achieved it, your life would get very boring very quickly. Um, but yeah, it's bizarre.
So the lesson to all of this to me is just like, be grateful for what you have. I think it's always good to, have goals and, to think about, is there a way that you can grow? But I think learning to be grateful for what you have and live in the present is very hard for me and probably for a lot of other people, but I think that's the move.
Yeah, and I also think the thing I did, which was cool, and I think is important. It's always like move incrementally and pivot, as opposed
Yeah.
to
Yep.
when we were talking about how I managed to get to changing my niche. It wasn't by making a drastic overnight. I was like, oh shit, I'm so fed up with doing parkour videos. Tomorrow I'm going to make a video about Ricky Gervais. My
Right.
audience
You
wouldn't
did
have watched it.
parkour, then you did subcultures.
I did not actually. It was one in between. It was parkour. It was extreme sports, subcultures, and
Right,
then
right, right.
broader.
Okay.
I'm still doing the
Yeah.
subculture stuff, but now broader. And it was like
Yeah.
very
And so
much
that's a
pivotal.
very
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. It's like a linear progression to me. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you then. You were into skateboarding at some point. You did some work in skateboarding. Is that what you were talking about with the MTV stuff, or was it different?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started skating to answer your question about how old I am without telling you. I got into skateboarding. The first time I sort of became aware of it was do you know what Bones Brigade is?
Yeah, because of the documentary for sure.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I got into it when Bones Brigade was actually new.
Damn. So is this where they were coming up, like they were becoming popping, or was it they were popping at this point?
They were already popping at that point. So this would be like 87, 88 is when I was sort of aware of skateboarding, but I was like a little kid and I didn't know anything. I was just like, oh, that's cool. Because they
Okay,
had like, bright pink shorts and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't actually start skateboarding until the early 90s in the big pants and tiny wheels era,
The Jenko
which in
jeans.
hindsight, no, it's before that. This was like I don't know, there's a company called Blind that I think was maybe one of the first to make the really big jeans.
Okay, cool.
But similar kind of thing, but it was before Jenko. And that, in my opinion, I think was probably like actually the worst era of skateboarding because it was so shitty to watch because everyone's riding these like 35 millimeter wheels and doing these insanely complicated flip tricks, with no air or anything like that. Because they're tiny little wheels, you can't really
Right.
do that much. So it's like these guys in like absurdly large pants doing super technical tricks that nobody could understand. Like, oh, it's a 360 fucking backside pressure flip
Well, because
to
the jeans would make it literally hard to kind of see the feet type thing.
yeah, partly, yeah. And it was just, and everyone was such a fucking asshole too. It was just like the fucking worst time for skateboarding, in a lot of ways. But anyway, that's when I sort of
So
started
funny how
skateboarding.
that's held as that's the golden era. Everyone in their head, it's like, oh, the '90s, dude. If you were skating in the '90s,
I mean, the late 90s, I think were probably better than that. At least in my opinion, but the early 90s, man, that like the New Deal Blind era, there's some things about it that were cool, but like, dude, and oh god, the people are such fucking assholes. So that was sort of, and I was bad at skateboarding, and I realized like I'm never going to be good at it because I'm sure parkour is the same as like you have to really commit to a trick in order to land it. Like if you don't commit, you're not going to land it. You have to be willing to just throw yourself off this thing and potentially get fucked up. And I just have too much self-preservation to do that. So I realized I was never going to be good at it.
what was like the best thing you did? Did you get any cool tricks, or you're pretty simple with it?
No, like ollie off a fucking 2 foot high concrete block.
I think parkour, like this is the thing with skateboarding and parkour. Skateboarding has such a high like skill gap, like barrier to entry is so high. Parkour on your first day, you'll probably do like a kind of decent jump and you'll be like, oh, that was cool. And then within the first year, you're probably doing some okay things. Skateboarding, to me, it feels like if you get a kickflip within 5 years, you're killing it.
I've landed a kickflip a couple times that like not off of a ledge or anything, just like on flat ground. That's like the pinnacle of my skateboarding ability. But parkour, I mean, at least the stuff that I see online, which granted is probably like the most extreme version of it, is like that shit's fucking crazy. Like people throwing themselves out over the craziest gaps and like how do you even practice that? Because if you I don't know what you call it, like bail on one of those tricks, like you fall 32 feet down a fucking parking garage onto your face.
Yeah, I mean, for parkour, it's like when you see those insane clips of, I'm guessing you're probably talking about like Stora and probably even the old school stuff and like clips of Dom Tomato doing these big fronting over a thing. And
honestly, what only stuff that I've seen on your channel, that's like the extent of my parkour knowledge.
Like if you think of it, that's probably year 10 of some kid who's been training since 15. Or even
but how do you train for 10 years without like breaking your spine? Or maybe they do. I don't know.
So you will, all the flips, I would say probably all of the flips, all the acrobatic stuff will be learned in a gym where it's soft. So you're learning how to
Okay.
do it. There are some people now, like if there's parkour people, they'll obliterate me for this, but there are some people from like Russia, Lithuania, like Ukraine, all these kind of Eastern Bloc places. They didn't
Right.
have access to gyms, and they are the best because they would learn on like sand hills. They would be just sending these insane flips on sand hills and shit. So yeah, a lot of the acrobatics learned in a gym, but when it comes to height, I mean, it's kind of a just slow progression. It's a real mental thing. Like once you understand what you're able to do, and most people will kind of measure their jump. They'll be like, I can jump 10 feet. By feet, it would be literally your feet. Like you'd be like, okay, 10 feet, 11 feet. And then you'll get to a day where someone's like, look, there's a challenge, and it's like maybe even just above your head, but there's like a kind of moment. I would say it's literally when it's above head height where it becomes considerably scarier. So most parkour will be trained under head height on curbs,
Hmm.
on little things, and then you see something, and then you go, okay, we're gonna do it, and then all of a sudden it's a 5 foot jump, which is half what you can do, but you get up there and you're only above head height, and you look at it and you're like, fuck this, I'm going home. And so
6 feet is pretty fucking high when you're standing up there.
yeah, because
It's
it's
pretty
plus
high.
your 5'10", but I'll say 6 foot. But yeah,
Yeah.
like plus the extra. So you're actually 12 foot. Your head is, so your eyes are at 12 feet.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, it's way scary. But when you finally crack it, you'll go through this thing of now I'm starting to get okay with heights. But it's very much, some people are just naturally great at it. But for me, it was like very measured, and it would be a case of almost a tolerance. So if I didn't train at heights for like a month or something, it would drop straight back down. I'd be scared shitless of it. So it was like a kind of constant exposure therapy to be in scary situations. A lot of climbing, would do lots of climbing. That would also help. But yeah, jumping at height is like either you're naturally very confident with it, or you just through exposure. And to be honest, the best people tend to be just through exposure. They're just used to it. And to be honest, the high up parkour thing is really like, I'm going to say 2% of what people do. Most people train at kind of like what we'd say is like you're not going to die at that height. You might hurt, but you're not going to die at that
Right.
height.
Right. Like skateboarding. You
Yeah.
fall and maybe break your ankle at worst, but you're not going to die.
Yeah, and like there was this one clip from back in maybe the 2000s skateboarding, and it was, what was his name? It was the water tower gap, and he did it on a skateboard. It was just,
And he landed it.
yeah, it was, what's his name? I can't remember what his name is. If anyone in chat knows his name, but basically he did this big. It must have been 12 to 13 foot, maybe 14 foot, skating gap. He just done an ollie over this tower gap, and it was like two high up water towers, and he landed it, rolled off. But to me, the most impressive part, right, was that he must have thrown his skateboard to his mates or something, and then he had to run back and jump the other way.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
He's not a free runner, he's a skater. And he's just done a 14-foot running precision at height, having never done that before. To me, that blew my mind more than him doing the ollie, because
And he was just like, choop.
yeah, the ollie was something he knew he could do. The running precision, I wouldn't ever do that running precision, and I've done parkour for 10 years. So yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so like you did all that skating. You said in one of your, in like the No Jumper interview, you said that you worked in skateboarding. You did a job in skateboarding, or am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, so well, I did a magazine with it was called Flow, FLO, which some people might remember from like the 2000s. It was like decently popular. So it was a magazine at the time that had a DVD, a CD, and a magazine with it, which 401 and some other companies kind of copied. But as far as I'm aware, we were the first. And I did all the video content on there. So a company like Element or Quicksilver or whatever, Roxy or something would pay us a couple $1,000s to make a video segment for this DVD, and then we would distribute that DVD to independent skate shops and record stores and stuff like that. And we did about 125,000 copies of each issue, I think, and
Holy shit.
we did maybe 13 or 15 issues or something like that. Yeah, I started on issue number 6, I believe. So yeah, that was sort of the work that I did. And so like a lot of these action sports companies, I named a few of them. I don't remember all of them, but a lot of like skateboard, skateboard,
You had my
surfing.
dream job. That was like the thing that probably got me into video making, was the idea of doing something like that one day.
Yeah, it was cool. But that's another example of like I quit doing it because it was actually the first few issues, it was amazing because like I could just do whatever the fuck I wanted, because like in action sports, like there's no creative boundaries to what you can do as far as
Mm.
like, creative stuff goes. And that was cool. But then after a while, I made, I don't know, whatever, like 30 skate videos in a year or something. And I was like, I don't know, I'm out of ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, which is a good problem to have. But I was kind of just like, I was like tapped out and I didn't have time because the volume of work was so high. I didn't have time to like chill out and recharge and think of new things. I was just kind of like,
Can I ask?
I'm
Because
shot.
I'm so curious, like what someone would get paid in that sector. Because our imagination. The reason I ask, I'm not just being rude, is like in parkour, you couldn't work as a videographer in parkour. That isn't a job that exists.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I got paid $3,000 an issue, and we did 4 issues a year, so I got paid $12,000 a year to do that.
Okay.
Um, and granted, this was whatever 2008 or something like that, but still, I mean, 12 grand a year in 2008 was still minimum wage.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I did it because I wanted the opportunity. To our conversation before,
Mm.
I was like, I don't care. I get to have a bunch of this stuff in my portfolio that I can say I did this video for like Quicksilver. Like we did a thing for they had a video called Elementality with like Bam Margera and Mike Vallely and a bunch of like Nigel Houston, I think,
So, you,
before when he like just came out,
mm.
you know.
So who are
Like
some of the skaters you would have met and stuff?
I did a thing for Rob Dyrdek opened a skate plaza outside Dayton, Ohio. I went out there for that. And we did stuff with like Ryan Sheckler when he was like a little kid,
I've
like I
met
said,
Ryan
and I
Sheckler. I've met him,
yeah, he seems like a cool guy.
but
He
I
was
met
like
him now. So you met him when he was like a kid, when he was getting famous.
14 or something.
Yeah, when he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
famous.
Yeah, and Nigel Houston when he was a little kid. Um, Corey Duffel. I
That's
don't
so
know. I'd have to
sick.
look. I mean, I'd have to look. It's been so long.
And with Nigel
I don't-
Houston, would you say you could have seen where he was heading? Was there anything obvious that he was going to be as sick as he is, or?
I mean, the fact that at the time he was probably 13 or something, and at least as competitive with like grown men, it's like what the fuck? Imagine if this kid sticks with it for, however long. And obviously he ended up being who he was.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of surfing stuff, which I also didn't know anything about surfing at the time, but we did stuff with like Rob Machado and what's Jeff Curran and a bunch of other people that I didn't know who any of these people were at the time, but that was cool because I like watching surfing. I don't know anything about it, but
Yeah.
I like
You
watching
know
it.
what? I don't know what it is. I fucking love all extreme sports, and the one thing that I've just never really got is surfing. I think it's just because to me it's like visually it's just one thing constantly, and I don't see the nuances between the different variations.
I don't
Where
either. Yeah.
oh, okay, but yeah, like when I see skateboarding, like the different areas, I don't know. But it's interesting to me. But funnily enough, surfing is like one of the biggest, probably the biggest. I don't know. It's probably not the biggest, but
I just like the ocean. I mean, I grew
yeah.
up on the West Coast and I grew up around the ocean my whole life and stuff. So I just like the ocean.
So okay, I wanted to talk about how because I guess if you're going from that, that's like skateboarding as a subculture kind of thing, and then
Yeah.
what I'm very unaware about is really kind of like, would you call your genre of music that you're into? Is it just the general term? Is it hardcore? Is that am I being stupid?
Yeah, I mean that's what I would say. I mean, I'm into a lot of stuff, but the scene, like if you look at like the flyers behind me and stuff, like the scene that I would say I was like the biggest part of that sort of contributed the most to who I am as a person was hardcore. Yeah.
Is that got any Ray William Johnson influence in the background?
Who? I don't know who that
Oh
is.
damn, he's like the OG YouTuber. He was the guy who used to do like just roundups of internet shit back in like 2009,
Oh.
and he had a
I
poster
didn't I
background
didn't
like with
watch YouTube at all until I started doing it.
okay, so how did all right? I don't want to jump completely, but how did that moment happen then?
Well, I felt like I should understand YouTube just for my job doing marketing. Because I'd been like, I did magazines and shit, and then I did blogging after print started, to become irrelevant. And then as I saw YouTube start to become, kind of a thing, I was like, well, I guess I should understand this. And so I thought I'll make a channel, and if I can get a couple thousand subscribers, that would be enough for me to be like, okay, I understand how YouTube works, for
Yeah,
my job. And it ended up just becoming much bigger than that. And I was like, well, I got this tiger by the tail. I guess I should hang on.
and it was straight away. It was to do with music. That was the stuff that's first on your channel now. That was the first stuff you made.
No, the first stuff I made was about business because
Got
that's
you.
sort of like actually like if you know me personally, I like never, ever, 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 ever talk about music. Like you could be around me for months and I would never talk about music. Uh, Business is kind of like the thing I'm most interested in. And I started out talking about that, but nobody gave a shit because in hindsight, of course, it's obvious to me, like that's just not what people care about on YouTube. And I was like, well, I've talked about music. I've written about music lots and I understand this and stuff. So maybe I'll try that. And that took off. So lesson there being that like in particular with YouTube, the thing that you think you're going to do when you start your channel out is almost certainly not going to be the thing that it ends up being.
Yeah, very true, very true. So hardcore as a blanket term, then.
Yeah.
What's the? Are people into it in the same way? So they, how you're into lots of different subgenres? Is it that you have a scene that follows one genre heavily, or do most people sit where you do, where they kind of appreciate the whole range of music?
No, I think most people are more into like one particular subgenre.
So how does your audience work when you're doing lots of different ones? Who are the people that watch you similar to you, or is it that they might be into one and then you expose them to something else?
I would say that I stick pretty, to me, my genre is if it's white men with guitars who were popular from like 1999 to 2007 or so.
So
Uh,
kill switch, no go.
no, Kill Switch is well,
That's a joke.
Kill Switch would work because yeah. But in all seriousness, my audience oftentimes gets mad if there's like women or black people in it or
Really?
whatever. They tend to not like it.
Damn.
I don't think that they know that they're like this, by the way. But
Yeah.
if you look at the comments and stuff, you can tell. Like if you bring up, say, like go look at the comments of my video about No Doubt. It's just they get so ugly. Like, oh, Gwen Stefani's a fucking, bitch. She destroyed that band and blah 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 blah. And like, you guys need to calm the fuck down.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, like I've noticed, like to be honest, I make all my videos about dudes, to be honest. And I don't it's not a,
I bet I was gonna say, I bet if you made videos about women, they
yeah,
would probably perform badly and get negative
what do you think
comments.
that is? Because I think I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day, where it's like I think women will watch videos of men. They'll watch like
Yeah.
if it was a story of some famous dude, they'd watch that and they'd watch the video of the woman. But I feel like
Mhm.
guys don't really. I'm not really probably going to click on a video about I don't know like. I don't know the story of Taylor Swift or something. I'm probably less likely to click on that, but I feel like most guys would just watch guys. Well, I don't know why. It does seem like there's a thing there. Maybe there is.
Yeah. I've Patrick CC told me the same thing. Yeah, I think that's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was actually thinking that when I was just saying, I was like, he had videos on Doja Cat and stuff, and I don't think I watched them, and I think they might have underperformed compared to his other stuff, and I wonder
Yep.
what that is. Yeah. So you spoke to Patrick CC.
I mean, I interviewed him a couple years ago before he was like real big because he started out kind of in the emo rap world, which is where I know
Yeah.
him from.
So I followed him at like 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So you remember him back
yeah,
then when
and
he was like hanging out garden and stuff.
yeah, that was it. And he popped off this emo rapper. I forget his name. Or he helped pop him off. I don't know how big he got in the end, but he was kind of like a Lil Peep. I'd say he was kind of like a.
Garden is the guy's
Was that
name.
it? Garden. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that kind of time. Yeah, so I was into him. I've never spoken to him. I think I might have sent one DM that he replied to or something. I'd like to try and chat to him because
He's a really smart guy.
yeah, I really like his thumbnails, and he's cool. How it's just so funny how he has two totally separate channels. Like they don't really cross over a lot. I really love his thumbnail style. I kind of don't really do I've started to try and move away from every video being totally doom and gloom. Like I'm not saying he does that, but I feel like most people in the video essay space, it's all why the world's ending because this person posted a TikTok about it,
Yeah.
and it's all that. And it's
Well,
like,
I mean, there's a thing in psychology called negativity bias, which is that our brains are literally programmed to have a higher recall rate and pay more attention to negative information, which from an evolutionary perspective makes sense because it's more important for you to remember where the saber-toothed tiger lives because it could kill you than
yeah.
to remember how pretty that flower was. And so
I try and tap it. I try and tap it where I'll like maybe make it look negative, and it might touch on the negative half on it. But I always try, typically,
Yeah.
to try and bring it back into a more rounded or positive story. But I do notice my overtly positive videos, they tend to underperform. If it's
I hate that like
Yeah.
failure porn stuff like
Yeah.
Sunny V2, the embarrassing downfall of blah blah blah. It's like who the fuck are you to
dude,
like throw stones at this person? All you fucking do is talk shit about other people that have accomplished more than you or I ever will.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you?
Yeah, I want to make a video about maybe I don't give away the title just in case someone's sneak. Maybe Sunny V2's in the corner, but yeah, it's like I want to do a video on that kind of attitude of like these people whose whole career is to sit and wait for someone to fuck up and fall off, and now I'm making content.
I hate that shit, man.
It's
I
weird.
hate it.
It's the new tabloid. It's the modern
It
day.
totally is.
Yeah. And
it's fucking pathetic. Like if that's what you're doing with your life, it's fucking pathetic, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
It doesn't add anything to the world. Like I like dabbled in it. I did one video. I did to be honest, and I kind of feel bad about it in a way. I did when Liver King happened. I rushed to make a video on it because I was like, I'm gonna chase this trend and put it out, and it done well. But I was like, I don't know how good I feel about that. To be honest, like it just felt like it felt like eating the carcass of something, and it. To be fair, he's done completely fine since that. But
it doesn't. I've done it a couple times too, and it doesn't feel good. Afterwards, I was like, ugh, I don't want to be that guy, and I was that guy. And it doesn't feel good. And I think there's a way, there's a way to talk about this, like you said, to sort of capitalize on the moment.
Yeah.
And it's totally fair. I mean, Liver King lied, and he's like a shady guy and all that stuff, and it's totally fair to point all that stuff out. But it's that sort of like, you get the feel that it's some fucking nerd, in the corner, like laughing and pointing when someone, trips and falls.
Yeah.
Like, that's the fucking vibe I don't want. I hate that shit.
Yeah, when the cool guy gets rejected, it's like, oh, he'll perk
up.
Okay,
well, you're going to go home and fucking, jerk off to some fucking Twitch girl tonight. So who the fuck are you?
Yeah, it's a weird genre, and it's like, it's so pervasive, and yeah, there's just so many. Like, I try and do it with, when I've done stuff like why rollerblading died. But if you watch the video, you don't come away with it like, oh man, that was depressing shit. You come away with it with a massive appreciation for rollerblading in its time. And
you go, oh, that's interesting. I never wondered. Yeah, I watched that one. And then I was like, oh, why did it die?
And then it ends in a kind of, here's where it's going now. And I feel like you do that with your kind of, when you do the rise and fall of a genre. It's not necessarily just like it gives you appreciation. I watched the one about Smash Mouth, I think, just not that long. And it's kind of like, to be honest, I didn't realize other songs were by Smash Mouth that were by Smash Mouth. I kind of only knew by name the Shrek tune, but there was other ones.
That's a good that's a good example of one where I know what everyone wanted was for me to like dunk on that guy and call him, a fat loser, drunk, blah blah blah, and make fun of all the things that he did, all the weird shit he said on Twitter. And this is before he died, which makes me very like, first of all, I didn't want to do that and I wouldn't do it. But now imagine if he died a couple months after I made that video. Now imagine if I had made a video, just dunking on the guy, and then he dies a couple months later. Remember, his family, they use YouTube. They're going to see this shit.
It's so weird how people are so detached from, like, I have a personal example when I was working in marketing prior to YouTube, and we made these videos of, like, how much can I say it without sort of... So we made videos in a certain sector of transport where people kind of really enjoyed tweaking their vehicles or whatever. And one of the dudes, he'd done a great job. He'd done all this artwork. It was amazing. It was really meaningful. It was about his dad, and, like, had connections to his father who'd passed away, and he was fat, and I'm not gonna hide it, he was a big boy, and I thought, I film it, there's gonna be like 2-3 comments of dickheads like pointing that out, but literally it got so bad, every single comment, the video went viral probably because he was like bigger, and there was so many comments just endlessly harassing. It was horrible, and I was sat there like, we made this video because it was cool and it was emotional, it was nice, and all the comments are, just berating and berating. He got so upset, he had to ring us, because we filmed him in it. And like, I think his mum, like, called it. It was fucking sad. And we took the video down and shit. Yeah. And it was just awful. Like, people that, the internet thing, I know, it's kind of tripe to say, but it is like, the internet comment section and just like this kind of pervasive negativity that exists on the internet sucks. That's not,
and it does affect people. Like, I made a video about Bam Margera also, which of course, when you make a video about Bam, what everyone wants is for you to, highlight everything, he got fat and he's on drugs and this, that, and the other. And I didn't want to do that. because what I wanted to point out is like recognize that Bam basically single-handedly created this whole genre of content, which is still around today.
Yeah.
You know, like how many of these basically like prank channels or these channels, you know, like Logan Paul and shit, basically that's like sort of executing on the Jackass template. And so that's what I wanted to point out in the video.
Yeah.
And I did. And of course I mentioned like, look, you know, he's had some problems with drugs and mental health and stuff like that. But, you know, what I want to focus on is this creative contribution he made. And I don't want to say who it was, but somebody close to him DM'd me and it was like, oh, Bam and I watched that video the other day. It was awesome. Thank you for,
That's
you
it.
know, thank you for pointing these things out about him. And, you know, who does he really care what I think? Probably not. But, you know, you got to think the person you're talking about, they may very well see it. And would you be proud? You know, I don't say anything that I wouldn't say to someone's face. You
Mm,
know, if
mm,
someone's a real fucking piece of shit, I'll say it in a video and I would also say it to their face. You
yeah.
know, like the guy, you know, there's a guy from this band called As I Lay Dying that tried to have his wife killed. I think that dude's a piece of shit. And I would say that to his face and I'll say it in a video too. But that's my rule. Would I say it if that person was sitting right next to me?
That's a great principle to have. Yeah. I think that's a strong way of doing it. And like, you know, there is that edge where, you know, you might make jokes or something in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's generally, yeah, you have to feel like you can stand by your words. And it's this whole thing, man. Like, you know, you've probably dabbled in the political space and that, and I feel like there's this annoying thing at the moment where it's like the sort of idea of I can say what I want because it's my right, and I get that. I fucking fundamentally get
Yeah.
that. But when that overlaps into just being a shit person and just saying horrible
Yes.
things, one of the big moments for me, and I don't, if you're not like a political person online, totally get it. You'd have to talk about it. But one of the big things for me was like when Jordan Peterson, there was this like lady who did like you know, she was a big girl again and she was on a cover of a magazine and he said something
Yeah, I remember
like
that.
yeah, not beautiful. It's like, dude, that's just not a nice thing to say. It doesn't matter if you're right about the woke thing, blah blah blah. Just saying to someone,
I saw that too, and I was just like, fuck you,
Yeah.
man. First of all, you're like 60 years old.
Yeah,
Like,
and would you have said it to her face? You wouldn't. He would have never said that.
and even if he would, like, that only makes him even more of an asshole.
Yeah, and it's the fact that now we're in this weird space where yes, we should have our right and we need to be able to have our right to speak, but it doesn't mean that being a dick and saying stupid, shitty things is like heroic. It's not heroic. It's still shitty. You're just doing it in a time where it's more taboo to do it. And it's
The sad part is that it's the fastest way to build a following on the internet is by talking shit about people who are more successful than you.
Yeah, and
So there's a lot of incentives to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a crazy one. Anyway, I wanted to go because we sort of went on a good tangent, but I wanted to go back to what I was kind of originally getting. It was, so we were talking about hardcore, and I want to kind of understand like the subculture of that, because I always think when it comes to subcultures, it's one of the only one that to me you can kind of tell someone who's in that scene now. Whereas if someone's a skater, it could just be a fashionable fucking posy dude. There's like, but metal, it's like, it's clear this guy has tattoos, he's kind of like got, I don't know, facial hair or something. I can always sort of tell. And I'm kind of curious what you think about it as a subculture and a type of person. What is the type of person attracted to it, etc., that kind of thing.
Well, so without getting too far into the weeds, hardcore and metal are different things. So like hardcore is kind of a part of punk and not metal. And that matters because you know, like hardcore people dress like me, right? Like they look fairly normal. Like they would wear a hoodie and like, you know, Vans or something like that. They're not
maybe
doing
like a
like
bit of band merch or something.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe not, you know, and like, so whereas metal people might have, you know, the long hair and the beards and all that sort of thing.
So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing metalheads.
Yeah, probably so. Like, you know, hardcore people maybe dress more like skaters or something like that. And the difference is that one thing about hardcore, so you asked what kind of people get into it. Hardcore is for sure the most like physically violent genre of like rock music. Especially back in the 90s and 2000s, there was a fight at every show I went to. You know, there's an episode of Gangland about this gang called FSU that was like popular back then. And, you know,
that's a video idea right there.
Yeah, Gangland. There's another one called Courage Crew, which is some guys I was friends with. And, you know, there's like back in Salt Lake City in the 90s, you know, you look up on the news, there was people getting stabbed and shit like that at hardcore shows all the time. And, so hardcore, I think, you know, attracts people who are maybe a little bit more okay with, you know, that kind of thing. You know, right or wrong, that's just part of the culture. And a lot of metal people sort of don't like that, understandably. But I think it's sort of interesting that, metal is probably looks more extreme, and they might have lyrics about, whatever, like demons and wizards and, whatever, but they don't tend to actually be like physically violent people. Hardcore is much more likely to be that.
Hmm.
And I don't know why I sort of like, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting. People who are into hardcore, they can be that, but they're also some of the most like productive people. Like any business that you think about, like any sort of entrepreneurial business, there's like a very high chance that somebody involved with it came from the hardcore scene. Where even though it's like not a large scene, you know, for some reason, like hardcore people are just like really good entrepreneurs. I don't know why. They're like everywhere.
That's so interesting to me. So, okay, yeah, the big distinction you made there was like metal and hardcore, two different things. and
Yeah.
and
And obviously
yeah,
we're splitting hairs, but
yeah,
being that you talk about subcultures, you understand
yeah,
that,
the nuances
like
as well.
longboarding and skateboarding are not the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. This guy in the comment, One Mank, the boy One Mank, he's a legend. He's not this guy. Was it
Okay.
was it metal or hardcore fans that invented the Death Wall, the Wall of Death?
The Wall of Death. I would say, yeah, I would say that's a hardcore thing. And he said Lamb of God popularized it. So Lamb of God is definitely from the hardcore scene. They're sort of called a metal band, but they're from the hardcore scene for sure. They started out as a band called Burn the Priest back in the 90s that, kind of came from like the Richmond sort of hardcore punk kind of scene.
And without just being blatantly offensive, are people in like the hardcore scene? No, wait, was the metal scene? I'm getting it mixed up. Are they? Would you say there's like the one that you were saying was more aggressive? I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hardcore would be the more violent one.
Would you get people who are like the sort of anarchists, the people who maybe they like hitchhike around the country? I'm trying to think like what is that type of person? Are they working office jobs? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, so what you're talking about is like those would be more along the lines of like crust punks.
Crust punks. I've
The
heard
kind
that
of
term.
the people that like hop trains and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I
Is that
don't
what
know
we're talking?
why
Yeah.
I'm linking that. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah, the
vaguely
train hoppers.
okay.
Yeah.
Crust punks.
Yeah, well that's a whole other, I mean, dude, crust punks is like that's one of the like legitimately most dark, sad kind of scenes. Like if you were to look into that, I would wager that almost every single one of those people endured some sort of really horrible childhood trauma. And so if you wonder like why are they like basically homeless, like hopping trains and like, you know, shooting dope and stuff every night and, like essentially speed running, an early death, I would imagine almost all of them had some sort of horrible childhood trauma, unfortunately.
Is this the one where someone told me that there was a genre of music where there are celebrities who are very famous, making lots of money that like literally are still homeless doing drugs or something like that? Is that crust punk or?
That doesn't ring a bell to me because there's really nobody famous doing crust punk.
Okay. Oh, really? It's
So I'm
just a
not. I don't
small.
know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
very,
think I
very, very small.
randomly met a dude and he was telling me there's a genre of music where some of the biggest people in it are still homeless doing heroin, and it's like it's
I
so
mean,
cool.
yeah,
Like,
though that would be true of them, but
okay.
there's like, yes, that would be true, but there's nobody making any money off of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's like some really fucked up people. Like I've been around a lot of those people, and it's too much for me to handle. I can't do it.
And do you touch into any other? Like I've seen some of your videos where maybe you might talk on like emo rap and stuff like that. Do you in your personal life do you listen to music outside of that?
Out like, do I listen to emo? Yeah, that stuff's great. I think that was some of the coolest music like I've ever heard. Like say 2013 to 2019,
Yeah.
like SoundCloud, emo rap stuff was fucking awesome. I think that's some of the coolest music ever made.
Yeah, I really loved like I think it was where Young Lean came into it,
Hmm.
and that was like a sick. Like I was always more into hip hop, and I don't know if you know a lot about like UK rap or UK hip hop or grime or anything like that. I don't know if you.
Very, very little. It's just, have you seen that one? I don't know what show it's from. There's that guy. He's like, it's like some TV show. It's a skit where he's making fun of it. He's like, call my man Dennis because he's a menace.
Is it
Have you
Man's
seen
Not
that one?
Hot? It's not the tune Man's Not
Yeah,
Hot.
yeah, that
Yeah,
might
yeah.
that might be it. That's what all British rap sounds like to
Oh, it
me.
just
I
kills
just
me,
can't
Finn.
do
You're
it.
killing me.
I just can't do it.
Man's Not Hot
But
was the big.
I,
If that's the tune you mean, it was the biggest. I think the biggest drill song in history, and it was a parody. It fucking sucked, but it was a great tune. But yeah.
I don't know if that's the one, but it is. I think it's interesting though. I mean, I watched your videos about it and stuff, and I've been interested in a lot of like British subcultural stuff for a long time, going back to like I discovered I guess this was like sometime in the 2000s. I discovered Danny Dyer, um and and
Mate, I'm doing a
Chavs.
video on Danny Dyer at the, or like kind of in that realm on Danny Dyer at the moment.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
right.
excited.
It's about
I
so
discovered
we call, sorry mate to try. It was like the TV Hardman era. It was like an era.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
What were you gonna say?
I was in I became got real into Danny Dyer and Ross Kemp. Um
You're literally talking about my video. This is ridiculous.
I still love Ross Kemp.
He's a
Um
he's a savage.
Yeah, he's awesome. And then I discovered Chavs, which I know you have a video about.
Yeah.
And specifically, I got into, do you remember Donk?
Yes.
Like
What like
Blackout
Bad Boy
Crew?
Chiller Crew? No, yeah, Blackout Crew. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But a bit of bounce. Yeah. What's the
yeah.
shit? I'm gonna keep
Put
it
a
plain
donk
and
on it
simple.
was their
I
big
intend
one.
to make your brain
Donk da
tremble.
donk donk donk.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, and it
Yeah.
had Devo in it. Oh, I
Yeah,
think
so
I
I got
know
it.
all the verse to that Blackout Crew song.
I loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I got sort of into that. And I remember Vice did this show, did an episode about the town they're from is Wigan, I think, right?
Okay, I didn't know that. What Oh, the Blackout Crew.
Yeah, so
Right.
they did this episode about Wigan, and I
Huh.
sort of went down the rabbit hole of like I guess what would you call those type of people?
Yeah, they're chavs for sure. They're chavs. They're like, and
It,
in that era, they were like, I don't know how it worked, man. Because I remember seeing some of them, but they were not getting radio play, and you wouldn't hear
no,
them anywhere. But I would go on YouTube, and they'd have millions of views. I don't know where any of them are now, and I'm realizing this is a video topic. And
probably not in a good place would be my
yeah,
guess, but
yeah.
yeah.
But
So I
their
worked
videos
with
were glossy though. That's the thing I was kind of
they were.
confused about. Yeah, yeah.
And so I worked with a bunch of British people at the time. At the time, I was a graphic designer for Abercrombie and Fitch, and for some reason, we hired a lot of British people. And so I would always ask them about this stuff, and they'd just be like, "They're like, wow, why do you want to know about Wigan?" Like, "Oh yeah, my aunt lives there. It's awful. Why do you want to know
Uh,
about that place?"
Man, you've really
Um,
kind of opened. Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that because I've not even thought about like Blackout Crew. So do you know about their new group called Bad Boy Chiller Crew?
no,
So I think there's a rise. I might be wrong here. There's a rise in like that kind of era of donk, but the beats aren't donk, but it's the same style of rapping where it's like
okay,
a northern guy and he's rapping like this and like this.
yeah,
And it's like that over kind of more housey, colourful beats. And they're kind
right,
of more, yeah. And they're getting massive mainstream success. They're like really big. Vice actually did a video on them as well.
okay,
Yeah, Bad Boy Chiller Crew. And it's that whole era was, I guess, yeah, Northern Chavs who somehow, and now, yeah, now we're talking about, I know this has to be a video, but it's like somehow got some budget, somehow got signed to something that
right.
had money. I don't know where their videos were being played. They were getting millions of views. Yeah.
It was Around the World was the label that put all that stuff out, I think, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's what it was. I
Okay.
also got into I guess they're called Travelers.
Travelers like gypsies.
Yeah, and so they had some reality show where they all lived in these caravans and like would
Was it
yeah, I was into
Big
that. I
Fat
don't remember the
Gypsy
name of it.
Wedding or something like that?
It was not that, but it was, around that same sort of era.
That's so
It's
funny. We had so
yeah,
many good documentaries back in the 2000s
and
where...
Geordie Shore.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. How do you know this? Have you been to England?
No,
I feel like I'm being a Nardward at the moment with just like
no,
references to my...
no. You see, this is why I like your videos, is because like I'm very into like learning about subcultures that I don't know anything
Yeah,
about, and so I found all these sort of like kind of oddball, like when Americans think about British stuff, they don't think about any of this stuff, right?
yeah.
And I just sort
Harry
of
Potter.
discovered this, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. People have
Yeah.
no idea that this even exists. I want to learn everything about it.
Damn, man. Yeah, do you know Devo? Do you remember Devo? I sort of mentioned it maybe loosely in my chat video.
The name, I don't.
So
It's like,
yeah,
that's about
Devo
it.
was like, again, it was like this early 2000s internet sensation where it was just a northern guy and he talks like this, mate, you fucking dickhead, and he would have like his
Yeah.
Burberry on, and it was this parody thing, and it was through a guy called David Firth who made Salad Fingers, if you remember Salad
Okay,
Fingers? Some
yeah,
creepy internet shit, and he made this thing and he got on like television. He started having a bit of a career, and it was like before that was really like an avenue to be a content creator, and he was really popular online, and then eventually couldn't make money out of it, went into a normal life, became a teacher, and like many years later, all these old videos resurfaced, and he got fired from his job.
Oh.
But he was one of this. My point, the link there was that he was in a Bad Boy Chiller, no, a Blackout Crew video. He was in Put a Dog on it, yeah. So yeah, it's crazy, all these little intricacies. I always think the same of America though. Like I think when you're a British child, you grow up watching American shit, so you kind of have awareness of certain things. But then when a channel like Andrew Callahan, Channel 5, when that comes along, that's really cool because that's like showing the side of America that, you know, Cartoon Network weren't trying to show us, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. So what part of America you said you were from?
I'm from the Seattle area.
Okay. And
so northwest.
And Seattle is like, is it kind
San
of
Francisco
hipstery sort of thing, or how would you describe the culture?
Yeah. Seattle is basically like San Francisco, essentially.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, I'm kind of picturing for me that's hipsters and technology.
Yeah, hipsters and that's what it is. It's rich tech people and hipsters. It wasn't like that when I was a kid, but that's what it's like now.
And the scene of like hardcore and all that sort of stuff, is that big there? I'm sorry, I'm being so stupid. I know nothing about it.
No. I mean, how would you know anything about the Seattle hardcore scene?
Okay, yeah.
No, Seattle is actually a really bad city for music. A lot of people may think otherwise because, you know, we had Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all that stuff in the 90s. But it's actually a really bad city for music. Number one, because if you look at the map of the United States, Seattle is way up in the very northwest corner, and there's no other cities that are close to it. So like Portland is kind of close, but it's not a big city. So a lot of bands won't go there on tour because it's so far out of the way. And also it's really expensive to live here. So, you know, if you're a musician, you probably can't afford to live here. So it's actually kind of a bad place for music.
It's interesting in America, stuff being so regional, because we don't experience that really in England. It's like if you're big in England, you're big in England. You're not big in London, you're probably big all over. Whereas America, right. Yeah, it was like, we always had the thing, you've kind of got me in that 2000s thing now. We had this thing where we were always trying to break America. So we would always we would like find a dude who could rap half decent, and we'd be like, America, take him. We'd send him to America, and he'd go there, and his soul would be just crushed because American hated us. Like they did not fuck with our music early days.
Yeah, it's interesting though with drill now is that we sort of took. So the drill that I, you know, for the beginning of the term drill, I remember being around like 2010 or so, like Waka Flocka and stuff.
Drill, wasn't it? Yeah.
And yeah, well, yeah, even before that, like Waka Flocka, and then like Chief Keef and stuff.
Yeah.
But then there was this other, so then there's like the Brooklyn drill and Bronx drill and all that stuff, which was, I don't know how this happened, but somehow like people from New York basically imitating London drill.
Yeah, well, I think it was, I'm not an expert, but you had, about 2015, 2016, you had, what was the group name? There was like a beef in, I think it was Peckham or some shit, I can't remember. There was these two groups, and they kind of made this new sound. I'm trying to completely remember this because
Trap Lord Ross probably has a video about this.
Yeah.
It's 4 hours long with 9 million views,
and he's got some weird haircut.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I think it was Pop Smoke. I think it was when Pop Smoke came back, and it was the change of the rolling 808s. We love the sliding 808s, which I think probably is linked to like our history with drum and bass and stuff like that. Where like. And so we did that, and it was the hi-hats. It was the...
But also that, like, grime flow.
Yeah. And I forget who it was. I think it was Digger D who did the first drill flow, which is the... It was like a certain flow that just sat on the beat so well, and then everyone just copied that, and that is now the drill flow. And yeah, you're right. And then now it's back in America. They've taken... it's like you sent the beats, we edited them, and then sent them back, and then you guys were like, all right... And so that's kind of where it sits now. And now finally UK rappers get some radio play. I think even Central C might be big in America, which is cool. Yeah,
no, he is. Yeah. And I think he's probably the first British rapper I can think of that sort of has success and credibility here. Like, I mean, maybe like Skeptica. I was going to say
Skepta, yeah.
He might have had some success, but like I don't think people really care about him. But like Central C, like for sure.
So Central C is maybe the cousin, or like he's related to nephew. That's the one. He's the nephew of a guy called Dappy. If I'm not mistaken, this is what I heard. And Dappy was in a group called N-Dubs, which was a shitty...
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they were on Around the World with Blackout Crew, I believe.
Okay. And that was when I was saying about how we sent our musicians to America. N-Dubs were one of the ones that we sent. Right. And in America, we're like, you can take that back. Yeah, yeah. Is it 30-day returns on this, I'm hoping? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
So one of the pieces of content, maybe you'll remember this, that really got me into this stuff was the Danny Dyer episode where he goes to talk to that that gypsy guy that's like a boxer. Do you remember that one?
Vaguely. Yeah, go on.
That and that made me, it's like the moment in every single Danny Dyer episode where like he always makes it act like something really bad's about to happen and he's scared. He's like, you know, and then it's like he seemed like a right nice geezer. Then he did a runner. Cool fucking hell.
I had to get the fuck out of there. He would do that. There was one time he walked into a pub, mate. I did the whole live stream on this because I'm researching for a video. He walked into a pub. They were all very nice to him. And he was going in being like, and he does this thing where it's like, I don't know if you can tell, but like he is fake Cockney. Although he is Cockney, he just seems fake. It seems like he's putting it on.
Oh.
Because he'll like...
No, I can't tell, but that's interesting.
To me, it's like, it's so clear. He uses all of the expressions of a Cockney geezer too much. It's like saying, oh, lit on God, no cat. It's like, dude, you're going to say...
Right.
Yeah, it's like he would do it too much in one sentence. And so he was going in there being like, right, I've gone down the old bubble with the old boys and I'm seeing a couple few and they look at me in the ones and two. He would just say shit, I don't know. And he's like saying all this stuff. And this guy who is a Cockney guy is looking at him like, just relax, Danny, relax. And then
you don't have to do this.
Yeah, just take a breath. Like, and then there was a bit where he comes out of the pub and he goes, yeah, it looked like they're gonna fucking scrap in a minute, so I had to get out. And literally, they're just drinking, they're just chilling. Like, yeah, he's insane. I want to make a video. So when I was doing this TV Hardman live stream, I was watching Danny Dyer and I went from just researching this era to just psychoanalyzing Danny Dyer. And I was finding I was trying to find an interview of him in like the 90s where he couldn't have been like that. He couldn't have been that guy. But like, I don't know, the more I went into it, it seems like I think he is like a, what do they call it? That type of actor where you go into character and you stay in character.
Method actor.
He's a method actor, I'm sure of it. Deep, no, I'm kind of exaggerating, but to me, it seems like he's a method actor. But yeah, it's so interesting that you're into that. So, did you have that in America? You had Doug the Bounty Hunter, but I don't know if that would really be akin to like Ross Kemp.
No, well, I mean, there might be something. I don't know. But Ross Kemp, I legitimately think Ross Kemp is really good.
Yeah.
Like Danny Dyer is just a clown, but he's funny.
Yeah.
But Ross Kemp, I think, actually does really good work, and he seems like a cool guy.
He's a very good journalist. Like I went into watching his videos when I was doing it on stream. I feel like I'm advertising my stream on my stream, but when I was doing it on my stream, I was watching him and just thinking like I thought he was a bit. I always had this memory of him being too hard on people, but he actually really gave people a fair shake of the whip. Like, yeah, he was very good at asking compelling questions and not asking. He could ask the provocative question. You know how Louis Theroux can ask a provocative question and get away with it. Ross Kemp also somehow had a way of doing that, and they were totally different approaches. Like Louis Theroux takes the dumb Englishman kind of thing.
Yeah, right. He's just the non-threatening clown.
Yeah, and Ross Kemp is kind of like I wouldn't even say disapproving dad. It just has maybe a bit more of like a fatherly thing to him, and it doesn't seem like he's confrontational. And he's very
he would just be
confident.
like, now, Jimmy, are you sure this is what you want to do with your life? Tell me why you're like this.
Yeah, and he'll ask them.
He'd be like, well, let me explain.
There was a bit where he asked these London gangsters. He was like, what do you think about this random kid who got killed? Random kid, and it was talking to these gangsters. And they were putting a lot of bravado on. They were like, yeah, whatever, bruv, it's kind of how it is in these ends. Like, if I'd do it myself. And then he asked him, do you know anyone who's been killed? And he's like, yeah, my brother. And he was like, how did that make you feel when that happened? And he was like, yeah, fine, it sucked. Like his whole demeanor dropped, and Ross Kemp got through him in this. Yep. Yeah, it was sick. Yeah, and I don't think America did that TV Hardman thing, really. Like the documentarian go out. We had Vinny Jones was another guy we had. He wasn't quite doing it as much, but yeah, we had this whole era. It was like dominating television for 2000s.
And I appreciate it. I watched as much of it as I could.
Yeah, I want to go. Go ahead, sorry. Man.
Yeah. No, no, good.
I was just gonna go through like a couple questions people asked. So I
Yeah.
had Jacko250, and he wants to know if you're into Grebo. It was a '90s British music scene, and he'd like to see his reaction.
Um, let me. I looked. Is that the stuff from Manchester?
Let me have a look. I should have made
Yeah.
you
Oh,
look
that.
it.
Yeah. Yes, it is. That's like EMF and stuff like that.
Okay.
Jesus Jones. Um,
Yeah, Midlands. So probably yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know any of these
So
specific towns,
pop will
but
eat itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think that stuff aesthetically is really cool. Like, yeah, I actually I think that stuff is cooler. It was not popular here, and I didn't care about it at the time because I just wanted to listen to like Suicidal Tendencies or something. Um, but okay, here's someone correcting me. The
Yeah. He,
EMF
he
aren't from
also
Manchester.
he also
This is
made me
why.
laugh because he's referring to Danny Dyer in the comment above that, and he played a character in Human Trafficking. And he reckons he's never come out of that character.
Yeah. Well, in any case, yeah, that stuff's cool. I didn't care about it at the time, but I appreciate it a lot more now.
We used to use the word grebo. I didn't even know it was a music genre. We used to use it to like talk about. It was kind of emos before emos, so like the dirty, yeah, like I guess probably what you and the boys were listening to. A lot of people would
Yeah.
refer to them as grebos. It'd be like
Okay.
they're all grebos. Another question we had was, is is punk dead? Who is new? Who killed punk? What is different about punk now versus early 2000s? This is a lot of questions. Has studded belts always been a good predictor of posers? Was 80s glam rock more just pick, let's go with punk.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So punk, in my opinion, punk as a genre of music, has probably been dead since the 90s. I mean, the last like punk band to come along and really break out would probably be either Green Day or Offspring, which is, like the mid 90s. And I don't really think anything has come along since then that like really updated that sound or look or anything like that. I think punk is sort of frozen in time, but it happens to every genre, you know. Like pick the genre, it doesn't matter. There's some point at which like it's executed at the highest possible level and nobody's ever going to do it better. I mean, like,
Interesting.
take like thrash metal or whatever. Like nobody's ever going to do it better than, Metallica and Megadeth or whatever. And so is thrash metal still alive? Is punk still alive? Sure, there's bands that sound like punk, but they're just sort of imitating what was done 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Now at this point almost 50 years. And that's fine. That's not a bad thing, but to me it's sort of like not that interesting if it's just a recreation of something that was done decades before, personally.
I kind of felt like that after a little bit with Machine Gun Kelly. I liked it for a little while, and then it just felt a bit like you're trying on your old DC shoes again. It's like
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
I, yeah. I get what you're saying about punk. Yeah, it's like I was thinking though when you were saying that, I have this understanding. I might be incorrect. Is that drum and bass was really big in like perhaps
Yep.
the '90s, and it really
Yeah, I loved that shit back then.
yeah, and I felt like drum and bass massively dipped off in public opinion, but its underground scene was massive. Like you
Yep.
could be a major drum and bass artist. Maybe there was Chasing Status had like a popular song, and I really thought it was never going to come back. But then right now, drum and bass has kind of come back, and it took like I'm going to say like 30 years for it to kind of come back. And I guess there was a few. What led to that happening was I think Jump Up was a new style of drum and bass. It was just where they changed the second snare, so it was like it was like
Oh,
a
okay.
little
Yeah,
different, and then the melodies kind of changed with it. It become more anthemy, more
Right.
like maybe like you could akin it to Big Room House in the 2010s,
Right,
Martin
right.
Garrix's like lead melodies kind of thing,
Right.
and yeah, that kind of changed, and a few things on TikTok popped it off again. So I wonder if punk will ever have a similar-ish trajectory of it just going dormant for a while and then coming back to me. I don't know. You're saying though you think it really kind of peaked, like it couldn't be.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that Sonic, to me, there's a lot of things that you could say are punk. Like, for example, there's a rapper called NASCAR Aloe that's like obviously like very punk. And to me, there's a lot of other things, or City Morgue or something like that, which I would say all of those things are like the new version of punk to me. But punk fans don't see it that way. And so I guess it's not punk.
Okay.
They say it's not punk.
Who are the biggest artists in your sort of sector of the music industry that you would say are the most mainstream, most marketable?
Sleep Token probably would be the biggest one right now.
Never heard
you
of
know,
it,
as
man.
far as newer artists.
That's why I'm so fascinated by that genre whenever people talk to me about it, because to me it feels so hidden from mainstream. It
Oh, it
feels,
is.
yeah.
It's not big. It's not big. And people get now, to be fair, Sleep Token, I mean, they sold out Wembley Arena in like 10 minutes. So that's legit.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, they're not big. I mean, they have like, I don't know, 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which respect. That's a lot of people, but compared to actual mainstream artists like Doja Cat or something who have like
Yeah.
50 million, they got a ways to go. But I would say Sleep Token is probably the biggest breakout artist in my kind of world in the past few years.
And where do people like Bring Me the Horizon sit? Are they just too mainstream to care about? Their different genre? Like where?
No, well, I mean, they're 20 years old now, so I would consider them a different generation. But yeah, I mean, they're the biggest in the genre for sure. I just didn't include them because they're so old.
Oh, okay, got you. Oh, okay, you're talking about up and comers kind of thing.
Yeah, but for sure, yeah, Bring Me the Horizon is like the biggest.
I feel like Bring Me the Horizon's probably one of the only ones. If you spoke to just the most normie Norman, it'd probably say, "Oh, I know about Bring Me the Horizon." That's
Yeah,
probably yeah.
in the UK, but not here.
Oh, really?
No. They
Okay.
might know Can You Feel My Heart from TikTok, maybe.
Okay, right. Yeah, and that's what I've heard you talk about. You know what? I don't want to go too far on different topics and stuff, but I've heard you talk about mainly on your Instagram, and it fascinates me how you balance all the different platforms. And I'm guessing you were saying you got somebody who helps you with that.
Yeah.
But you talked about it, I think, on your Instagram about how metal and like hardcore kind of music in general doesn't really embrace social media in the same way that lots of other
Yeah, they
genres.
hate it.
Yes, and yeah. And do you think
Okay,
that will
I mean,
yeah? Do you think that will change, or surely someone will come along and go, boys, let's just fucking put out a TikTok dance?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a whole conversation. There's a lot of users that do this stuff. Um, there's a lot of individuals who are making TikToks and stuff about this kind of music. Like that's how Sleep Token kind of blew up, is hot girls made thirst trap TikToks about them. But the artists themselves don't really embrace it. And I think that's sort of a mistake on their part. I get it. I mean, if you don't like TikTok, you don't like TikTok, but it's kind of like you can't really complain that your music is not as popular as you would like it to be, and then also refuse to do the things that would make it popular, right?
Yeah, parkour had this kind of teething problem for a while where it was like there was a team called Stora who started popping off on YouTube, and everyone was just super reluctant to do vlogs, and it was like vlogs were seen as selling out. And then it became like the meta, and everyone does it. And it's like, vlogs are great, vlogs are sick. But yeah, it took a while because it's that core audience in the beginning what sees every attempt at trying to not be working at Tesco's and then doing parkour in your free time. Any attempt at doing that is seen as sacrilegious.
Yep. So I forget who came up with this. Some skateboarder. Oh no, it's Bobby Hundreds. That's who it is. He has a term for this: core and poor. So he's like, go ahead. You want to stay core and poor?
Yeah.
Go for it.
And it's always what is, to me, always quite funny is when people do step out and do something. So my video on Tyler Creator is effectively this. When people step out and do something, they get hated in the beginning, and then it's 10 years later, everyone's doing it, and they appreciate that person for being like the pioneer. But in the early days...
But it takes 10 years.
Yeah, it is like that. Yeah, I mean...
You got to eat shit and be hated for 10 years.
Yeah, Tyler was loved, for sure, but like... Yeah, there was a lot of people that didn't love him. There was a lot of people, and I was one of them. I literally saw him as just like this faddy kind of thing. And now,
like when Goblin came out, like that kind of era.
In my video I was saying how like I didn't get him on the come up, and then when it was over, like 2016, when like Odd Future was done, I looked back and I got into it, and I was like, man, I fucked up. I didn't watch it in the era, like, and it was a cool moment in history. It's that thing. It's that core audience, man. They're the thing that makes it, and also the thing that breaks it in a way. But
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So heard of someone, one Mank band has said, heard of Soft Play. They supported Prodigy. Have you heard of Soft Play? They supported Prodigy.
I have not. Sorry.
Ever heard of Nihilist?
The old death metal band that turned into Entombed. Yes.
You're gonna have to clear that one up. Vizand.
I think they turned into Entombed. I could be wrong about that, but the old death metal band, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know nothing, so I have literally nothing to add to that. I have a few questions that came through on Instagram, so let me just give you some of these.
I have a call in 10 minutes, so...
Speed run.
Yeah, let's speed run
it. Why does UK music shit all over US bollocks? Just saying, what do you think UK music better or no?
Well, listen, it could be worse. At least it's not French music or German music.
Yeah, don't listen to French drill. That'll drive you
Yeah.
potty.
Nobody wants that to happen.
No, 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 no.
Or
When
Belgian.
I don't know what this. You know, Belgium's actually did one thing, which was they were the drum and bass. They made Belgium drum and bass, which was Jump Up, which was what Spike did. So they did
Oh, I
one
didn't know
thing.
they made that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I do like that
I don't
stuff.
know why not one. I have a mate who's a DJ, so I'm not that smart to be honest. It's just I've just heard him drunk tell me this shit 1,000
Okay.
times, and it's sort of got.
Uh-huh.
When is the Costco trip video coming out? I don't know if that's a reference.
Oh, I used to make vlogs and I stopped because nobody liked them.
That's a shame. That's a shame. What's your top 5 songs of all time? You can do for top 3.
I'll go with oh fuck, I don't know. As far as like rock stuff goes, I'll say maybe like Smash Your Enemies by Hatebreed. What's my age? Yeah, What's My Age Again by Blink 182, and maybe Live Fast Diarrhea by the Vandals.
I'm gonna ask my question. What do you think of the Blink 182 return? Do you think it's shit or cool?
I think it's cool. I mean, it's not they're not at their best, but they're not at their worst either. I mean, for being, for being 50 years old and surviving cancer and, all that. I mean, I think that sounds good. Like it's not the very best, but it's good,
Do you think the
which to
sounds
me,
developed? Do you think the sounds evolved? I feel like it's quite similar. It's sort of rehashing.
yeah, I think it's kind of similar, but again, they've been a band since 1992. Can we really,
Yeah, true.
like, what do we expect?
We need like a Jay-Z of like that sort of era. Like, you know how Jay-Z evolved and started talking about different stuff, and that was kind of cool. One last question then. So why doesn't he talk about emo bands? My Chemical Romance does not count like at all.
I have made lots of videos about those bands that have millions of views.
Yeah, exactly. War Dog. Shut up, mates. All right, man. I really enjoyed chatting to you. It was really cool. We went through lots of topics.
Anytime.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Same to you.
It'd be cool to do this again. I really enjoyed that. So yeah.
Anytime.
Have a good day, man. In a bit.
All right, take care.
Peace,
Bye.
peace, peace.